Hey everyone, and welcome back for another deep dive with us. Today we're going to be talking about something that's been in the news a lot lately. Well, at least locally in South Jersey.
Oh yeah, what's that?
Transparency, or maybe more accurately, the lack of it. In government, we're going to be focusing on one county in particular, May County, New Jersey.
Interesting.
Yeah, so we've got this article here from the May County Herald, and it's all about a commissioner meeting that happened just a few days ago.
Okay.
And there was some pretty heated debate about, well, basically the public's access to information about what's going on in the county.
I see. So like open meetings, public records, that kind of thing.
Exactly. So imagine you're trying to keep tabs on your local officials, right? But getting information from them feels like pulling teeth.
Yeah, I can see how that would be frustrating.
Well, apparently that's exactly the situation brewing in May County right now. And to be honest, it's probably more common than we realize.
That's a good point. We often focus on national politics, but these local issues can have a huge impact on our daily lives.
Exactly. So let's dive into the specifics of this case. This commissioner meeting took place on November 26th. And one commissioner, Will Morey, he's been pushing for some pretty big changes in how the county handles meeting information.
Like what?
Well, for one, he wants them to make audio recordings of the meetings public within 24 hours.
That seems reasonable.
Right. He even cited Sea Isle City, which is actually the county director's own town, as a model for this. They already do it there.
Huh, interesting.
And on top of that, he wants to change meeting times to 7 to allow more working folks to attend.
I mean, that makes sense. Most people aren't free in the middle of the day.
Exactly. So on the surface, these proposals from Commissioner Morey seem pretty reasonable, wouldn't you say?
Oh, yeah, definitely. In fact, a lot of counties across the country have already adopted similar measures.
Yeah.
But, well, it sounds like there's some pushback here.
Oh, yeah, big time. The other commissioners, Director Leonard Desiderio, Vice Director Andrew Bulikowski, and Commissioner Bobby Barr, they all claim that the county is already transparent enough.
How so?
Well, their main argument is that they live stream the meetings.
Oh, okay, so people can watch them online.
Right. But here's the catch. The article mentions that the audio quality of these live streams is often terrible.
Oh, well, that kind of defeats the purpose, doesn't it?
Exactly. If you can't even hear what's being said, how transparent can it really be?
It's like offering access, but making it practically impossible to actually get the information.
Right, exactly. And this is where it gets even more interesting. The May County Herald, they did a special report ranking all the South Jersey counties on transparency.
Really?
Yeah, they created a scorecard and everything.
Oh, wow. So how did May County do?
Not great. They scored a 1 out of 6.
Ouch. Out of 6.
Yeah. The Herald actually dubbed it their scorecard of shame.
I can see why.
It gets worse. They got the same score as Burlington County, which, I mean, it's not exactly a badge of honor.
Yeah, I guess not.
Yeah.
What's even more surprising is that Atlantic and Cumberland counties, they both got a 5 out of 6.
Right. So clearly some counties are figuring this transparency thing out.
Definitely. What were the criteria for the scorecards? Like, what did they look at?
Good question. They looked at a few key things, like whether the county offered remote access to meetings.
Okay, important for people who can't attend in person.
Right. And also how convenient the meeting times were for working people, how quickly recordings and documents were posted online after the meetings.
Those all seem like pretty basic things.
I know, right? But apparently, May County fell short on most of them. They only offered remote audio, and even that, as we said, had a lot of quality issues.
So it sounds like Commissioner Morey's proposals were spot on.
Yeah, I mean, based on the scorecard and the fact that the public can barely hear what's going on, you'd think his colleagues would be taking this issue seriously.
You would think.
But their arguments against his proposals are kind of revealing. Like Commissioner Barr, he argued that changing the rules mid-year would be inappropriate.
But if the current rules are resulting in a failing grade on transparency, shouldn't they be reevaluated?
That's what I'm thinking. It makes you wonder what their priorities really are.
Yeah. And then there's this statement from County Counsel Jeff Lindsay. He claimed that the audio recordings of the meetings are considered unofficial, and they just get trashed after the official minutes are created.
Wait, they just throw them away?
Apparently so.
That's wild. What if someone wants to go back and check something? Or if there's a dispute about what was said?
Right. I mean, it seems incredibly short-sighted. And maybe even illegal.
Yeah, I was thinking the same thing. There are open records laws for a reason.
Exactly. And this is where it gets even more frustrating. Director Desiderio and Vice Director Bulikowski, They both said there's no public demand for making these recordings readily available.
But how can people demand something they don't even know exists?
It's a classic catch-22.
Totally. This is like a textbook example of how those in power can control the narrative just by limiting access to information.
It is. And Commissioner Morey actually said something similar. He's quoted in the article saying, "It feels to me that we as a board are holding off the residents and taxpayers from getting information."
He's not wrong. Nope. And he even went on to compare Cape May to other counties, saying, "We are a county that likes to punch above its weight, but in this regard, we are punching below our weight."
He makes a good point. These recordings aren't just about boring meeting minutes. They're about accountability. Having access to those recordings allows citizens to verify information and hold officials accountable for their words and actions.
Exactly. And Morey even pointed out that having those recordings readily available could be super helpful if some big issue comes up later down the line. Like, imagine needing to fact-check something that was said months or even years ago.
Oh, yeah, that's a great point. I mean, it happens all the time in national politics. People try to twist words or take things out of context. Having those recordings would be invaluable.
Totally. But unfortunately, despite Morey's repeated attempts to get a straight answer about his proposals, Director Desiderio just shut down the discussion. He said, "We've heard from everyone. We'll let it go for now."
Ugh, it sounds like they're just hoping this whole thing will go away.
Right. But ignoring a legitimate concern from a fellow commissioner and from the public, I don't know. It just doesn't sit right with me. This whole situation raises a lot of questions.
It does, and I think the biggest one for our listeners is, what happens when local government isn't so open after all? Because this story, this isn't just about Cape May County. This is a much bigger issue about access, accountability, and who benefits when things are kept hidden.
It really is.
It really is a question we should all be asking ourselves.
Yeah.
You know, what happens in our own communities when local government isn't so open?
Yeah, and I think this whole thing in Cape May County, while it is frustrating, it's also a good reminder that we can't just assume everything's running smoothly behind the scenes.
Exactly. We have to stay informed and engaged, especially at the local level.
And this whole thing about the county just trashing official recordings, I mean, come on. This seems like a blatant disregard for the public's right to know what's going on.
Yeah, and it raises some serious questions about whether they're even following open records laws.
Right, because those laws are there for a reason.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
They vary from state to state, but they generally guarantee that the public has a right to access government documents and records, meeting minutes, emails, contracts, even audio recordings.
So this isn't just some abstract legal concept, folks. This is about your right as a citizen to know how decisions are being made, how your tax dollars are being spent, how your elected officials are representing your interests.
Exactly. These laws exist to protect you, the citizen.
And when officials disregard these laws or try to find loopholes, it just erodes public trust.
It really does. And what's interesting is that sometimes this push for transparency is met with resistance, not just from officials, but even from within the community itself.
Really? Why would anyone be against more transparency? It seems like everybody benefits from having access to accurate and timely information.
Well, some argue that too much transparency can slow down government processes.
I guess I can see that.
Or make officials hesitant to speak freely. And there are also concerns about releasing certain information, compromising security or privacy.
Okay, yeah, those are valid points.
But I think those concerns, they often pale in comparison to the benefits of having a truly open and transparent government.
You know, this whole conversation makes me think about something you mentioned earlier, information asymmetry.
Oh, yeah.
Can you explain that for our listeners and how it relates to this situation?
Sure. Information asymmetry basically means that one party in a transaction or relationship has more information than the other. In this case, it's the government holding more information than the citizens they represent.
Right, which creates an imbalance.
Exactly. And that imbalance can lead to a lot of problems. Distrust, suspicion, and this feeling of powerlessness among citizens.
It's like you're forced to just blindly trust that your officials are acting in your best interest, even if you don't have the information to back that up.
Exactly.
So how do we combat that? How do we level the playing field? What can citizens do to make sure they have the information they need to participate in their local government?
Well, the first step is awareness. Recognizing that this imbalance exists. Once you understand the power of information, you can start to demand it.
So it all starts with asking questions. Don't be afraid to reach out to your local officials, attend public meetings, request access to documents and recordings. These are your rights and, use them.
That's right.
It really all comes back to that idea that knowledge is power, right? but only when it's shared. And that's really what this whole deep dive is about, empowering you, the listener, to go out there and demand transparency from your local official.
Exactly. It's not about just trusting those in power blindly. It's about having the ability to check the information they give you and hold them accountable. If a local government is really confident in their actions and decisions, then why would they resist transparency? I mean, what are they trying to hide?
That's such a good question. It really shifts that burden of proof back onto the people who are supposed to be representing us. And I think it just shows how these seemingly small local issues, like what's happening in Cape May County, can have such a big impact on our lives and our communities.
Yeah, for sure. And it's a reminder that we can't just sit back and be complacent. We need to be involved in our local government, asking questions, demanding answers, and making our voices heard. This isn't just about one county in New Jersey. This is something we see happening all over the country, and it's a pattern we need to break.
Totally. So I guess what I'm trying to say is that this whole case study with Cape May County gives us a framework for how to approach these issues in our own communities. So start by checking out your local government's website. Can you find meeting agendas and minutes easily? What about budget information and financial reports? Is there a way to submit open records requests?
All good questions. And don't forget about the power of local media, too. I mean, a strong independent press is essential for holding those in power accountable. And they often rely on tips from citizens to investigate things that might otherwise stay hidden. So if you're concerned about a lack of transparency, reach out to your local newspaper or news station.
Yeah, and don't forget about the power of collective action. Connect with other people in your community who are concerned about these issues, attend public meetings, and organize around the things that matter to you. When people come together and demand change, those in power have to listen.
Exactly. Remember, you're not alone in this.
Yeah.
There are organizations out there dedicated to promoting government transparency and empowering citizens like you. Don't be afraid to reach out to those groups for help and resources.
So as we wrap up this deep dive today, I just want to leave you with this thought. Transparency in government, it's not a luxury, folks. It's a necessity. It's the foundation of a healthy democracy, and it's something we all have a role in protecting. Stay informed, stay engaged, and never stop demanding accountability from those in power.
Well said. And remember, your voice matters. Every question you ask, every meeting you attend, every action you take, it all contributes to creating a more open and just society. So thanks for joining us on this deep dive, and keep those questions coming.